So in just a couple of days' time, Rachel Reeves is going to stand up at a dispatch box and deliver what is probably the most anticipated UK budget of all time, at least from my memory anyway. There are expected to be some enormous changes being made, which will affect lots of people, probably almost everyone, and they'll affect people like myself and investors like you watching this video. So I thought it would be really interesting to actually do a video and explain how I'm going to operate and how I'm going to change things before that budget date takes place on Wednesday. And I think it's important to say I'm not going to spend this video speculating on all the different changes. I'm going to kind of skirt around them. I think there's been some really good videos, to be honest, that have been made on the subject. One I'll highlight for you, I think, is James Shack's video. He went through all the different changes that Rachel Reeves can make and the government can make, and he kind of went through more of the details there. So I'll leave a link to his video there. Now, the reason I thought this might be useful to some of you out there, as many of you will know who regularly view the channel, you'll know that I'm obviously a big advocate for investing and a big investor, someone who uses ISAs a lot. I have my self-invested personal pension, so someone who invests into a pension a lot. I am a homeowner with a mortgage. I don't have any other property outside of that, so I don't have any rental property or anything like that. I am a small business owner, so I am a director of a limited company. And then just to wrap things up into perspective, I've been a taxpayer in every single tax bracket there is in the country. So I've kind of seen 360. So hopefully that gives you kind of some flavour and some perspective. I don't have any rental property, I haven't got any children, and outside of my mortgage, I have very little debt as well. So that's kind of my perspective, which hopefully puts things into perspective about what I would do. Now, the reason this budget is so interesting is that the government have said they're not going to put taxes on working people, and also they're not going to touch the three big income sources. Now, let me just put this up on screen now, but if you haven't looked at how the UK government makes its money, this will be really interesting to you. Now, depending on which two graphs I have for you, here's how the government actually makes its income. So there's three main sources which make up a bulk of it. In fact, they make up 63%. That's income tax, VAT, and national insurance. Now, outside of those three taxes, really are much smaller taxes which make up a much smaller percentage of the tax take. So you have everything from stamp duty, land tax on property, you have capital gains, inheritance tax, and all those other little taxes as well. I say little taxes, but they do make a huge difference when they're added up. Now, the difficulty the government got themselves in at the moment is they've said that they're not going to move on those three different sources of income, which puts them into a much bigger hole, which is probably why we've got more and more speculation. Really, we could solve all of this by potentially putting a couple of points on income tax, but that's not going to happen. Anyway, one of the inspirations for doing this video was seeing articles like this and different videos of people saying how they're going to change the way they invest or sell their different property before the budget because capital gains tax is going up. So they're going to realise their gains now, or some people are going to flee the country, etc., etc. And kind of zooming out for a second, I thought, well, I feel like this is a little bit silly of people making big reactions to things that we don't know in the future. Now, if I reflect on my time as an investor, just generally, many of you will know I'm an index fund investor. I do have my own stock picks as well on the side, but I invest in the global stock market. Now, the global stock market is a huge generator of wealth over the long term. The average has been, 9 or 10% or so over a century if you look at the US stock market alone, not factoring into account inflation. Now, that's over extremely long periods of time. In the short term, anything can happen. 2020 was great, 2021 was good, but 2022 was awful, 2023 has been great, and 2024 has also been pretty good. Do I know what's going to happen the next year after that, or the year after that? I don't. And all of that is outside of my control. Now, all I do, as many of you will know, is, as I share on my channel from our regular portfolio updates, is dollar cost average and regularly invest into total market index funds or very broad market index funds. Because all I can do is what I can control. Now, reacting to things in the future which haven't happened or you think will happen, personally, I think is a very dangerous game. Now, your personal circumstances are different to mine, so that's absolutely fine. Everyone should just do whatever they want at the end of the day, what's right for them. However, I think if you are an investor or you're someone who's trying to manage your personal finances and you're trying to manage what will happen in the future, a future that is unknown, I think you're going to have a very, very stressful life, and you should try and focus more on things you can control. Just for example, I read that article about this guy selling up his property portfolio, and one of the things he kind of says is, oh, they're going to tax me loads. But actually, when you dig into the article, he's selling his properties also because he's massively in arrears with one of his tenants and they left it in a bad position. So turns out property investing isn't that exciting after all. And he probably hasn't mentioned that interest rates have gone up a lot too. Now, as a side note, just like I said, why bother changing the way you invest just because things might change? One thing we can be certain of in this life, and certainly if you go back through all the different kinds of taxes, just as an example, things always change. Just think of what's happened over the last couple of years, for example, about tax changes. So not only did we have the ISA rules change this year, actually for the better, now we can invest in as many stocks and shares, cash ISAs as we like. The limit remained the same, but you can have as many accounts as you want. That made things way simpler. But just look at other taxes like capital gains tax and dividends tax throughout the year. For example, these have all been cut massively, and they weren't cut by a Labour government. These were cut by a Conservative government as well. So both sides can basically do whatever they want at the time. For example, just look at capital gains taxes. The allowances have gone from a personal basis from £12,300 to £6,000, and they're now just £3,000 for this tax year. That means if you do sell anything outside of your own private residence, it might be stocks and shares outside of an ISA, or it could be a business, then you are liable to pay anything above that £3,000 at those different capital gains rates. Likewise, dividends have been on a similar journey, haven't they? They started back at £5,000 allowance per person, then it was £2,000, then it's £1,000, and now this tax year, and potentially moving forward, it's just £500. Could they be raised over the next few years? Possibly. Could they be completely abolished? Maybe. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't structure the way I either pay myself as a limited company owner or anything I do in my life based on what might happen. I will just play by the rules that are set right now. And just going back to things like ISAs and pensions, yes, ISA allowance has been frozen at £20,000 for many years now. I think it's 7. Don't quote me. I'll put it up on screen now, whatever it is, how many years it's been. So in real terms, it's shrunk. But the problem for most people, that is a very, very generous allowance. Most people will never come anywhere near close to be able to put that much in one tax year into their investing. The gap we have as people in the UK is most people aren't even aware what their ISAs are and how to use them. Lots of people might have a cash ISA, but have never even considered a stocks and shares ISA. They think it's either too risky, they don't really understand how the stock market works, for example. So the barrier to entry isn't because of that amount of money, it's because most people don't know. So I try and do my small part and play my small part of actually teaching people and educating people that how these things work, how they exist. And actually you can, as a long-term investor, leverage something like a stocks and shares ISA to have tax-free gains for many, many decades. Could that get changed at one point? Could there be a cap as been speculated? Sure, anything can happen. The tax system, the legal system, can change at any point. That's what governments can do. But taking action, I think that's the key thing. It's a similar when you look back, just compare this, you're an avid follower of the stock market, that there are dips, there are ups and downs, there are flash crashes that we've had recently where the market just has an absolute meltdown and thinks we're going to go into recession. But over the long run, that's just noise. And in a similar way, this is just noise too. Now, yes, you want to be smart, you want to be savvy, you want to do what's right for you, like I said earlier. At the end of the day, if you are a big property magnate with lots of different portfolios and in different structures, etc., then sure, you're going to have to structure that with your accountant and work it out. But it's also important to say that capital gains tax won't affect you if you run your business in a limited company anyway. Capital gains tax is paid on a personal basis. So two separate different things anyway. So the key summary here is to just play by the rules that are set right now. Making big changes, I think, are very, very dangerous. I think anyone advocating that you should make big changes to portfolios and your investment based on a budget which is unknown, I think is extremely dangerous and foolish, to be honest. I think anyone saying, oh, just sell up now, go away and figure things out later on, also very foolish. So let me just show you what I'm going to do and to prepare for the budget next week. Here are the 3 key things I'm going to do. I'm going to do
absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So that's what I'm going to be doing from an investment perspective. Nothing. I'm not going to change anything. In fact, as I make this video, it'll just be a couple of more days out from the start of November, where another direct debit will be going into my ISAs, into my pensions, and investing into my investments as normal. Absolutely nothing is going to change. However, I will say that I will be covering the budget, and I do want to make a lot of content around it to make sure that people fully understand it. And then we can actually review it, and from an investing perspective, work out if there are any changes that might need to be made. I don't rule out the fact that changes may need to be made, and if they are, guess what? I'll do them. Now, one thing I wanted to say as well is I am going to cover the budget live on my Discord community. We're going to kind of watch it live, and even if you're at work, you can jump in there and just kind of listen to it. You don't have to speak in it or anything like that. Now, I've put a free trial to my Discord community if you do want to jump in there. 7-day free trial. If you just come on it when I jump in there for the budget and then leave after that, absolutely fine. It'd be great to have the more the merrier. people there kind of watching it together so we can all kind of wince or shock or whatever, and paste emojis everywhere. But I will be making a video, hopefully on the same day, and then some more deeper dive follow-ups on that as well, because the OBR on the same day releases kind of their more detailed report. And I'll also want to cover some of the more detail too. So if there are big details changes going on in pensions, ISAs, savings accounts, whatever it might be, corporation tax, different business reliefs that might apply to small business owners and limited company directors, I want to cover all of that stuff in depth when we know it's happening and we can confirm on which date these different changes are going to happen. But until then, I'm doing absolutely nothing. But I'd love to know your opinion. Let me know what you're doing in the comment section below. I will see you in the community. See you in the next video. Happy investing.